Today we're going to look at representing inequalities on a graph. Now we do this using straight line graphs. And for year 8 work we only need to worry about horizontal and vertical lines to represent our inequalities. This relies really heavily on the work that we did earlier in the year about equations of straight line graphs. So let's have a quick reminder about how the equations of horizontal and vertical lines work. So let's start by looking at this horizontal line here and looking at some of the coordinates of points on this line. If I start with this point here, it has coordinates 8, 3. Its x coordinate is 8, its y coordinate is 3. If I look at this point here, it has coordinates 2, 3. Its x coordinate is 2, its y coordinate is 3. And then if I look at this point here, its x coordinate is -4, its y coordinate is 3. So if we look at all of these coordinates, we notice that the y coordinate is always 3. So we would call this line y equals 3 to show the y coordinate is always 3. Now we came up with a bit of a cheaty way of doing this because the line y equals 3 goes through the y-axis at 3. So if you've got a horizontal or vertical line, you can check which axis it goes through and where it goes through, and that will help you work out the equation. Remember, the x-axis is the axis that goes across because a letter x is a cross. So the x-axis is a cross, and the y-axis goes up to the sky, y to the sky. So this line here goes through the y-axis at 3, so it's the line y equals 3. Remember, this cheat only works for horizontal and vertical lines. It doesn't work for diagonal lines. Let's have a look at a vertical line. If I look at some of the coordinates on this line, this one here will be -4, 9. This one here is -4, 4. This one here is -4, -2. This one here is -4, -8. So every time we've got -4 as the first coordinate. Remember, that's the x coordinate. So the x coordinate is always -4. So this is the line x equals -4. Let's check my cheating method works. It goes through the x-axis and it goes through at -4. So it's the line x equals -4. We've now asked to draw some lines for ourselves. So if we draw x equals 7, I know it goes through the x-axis at 7. So there's 7 on my x-axis. So this cheating method, where we've got x equals a number or y equals a number, only works for horizontal and vertical lines. If it goes through the x-axis, it must be a vertical line so that it can cross through that point there at -7. Sorry, at +7. The next one is y equals -6. So we need to go through the y-axis, y to the sky, and at -6. Here we go. So we need to have a horizontal line to go through that -6. So that's a quick reminder of how we use equations of horizontal and vertical lines. Next, let's have a look at how we can put an inequality onto a graph. So instead of having something like x equals 3, we're going to have something like x is less than or equal to 3. So remember, the inequality direction tells you which bit is smaller. So if the small end of the inequality is next to the x, it means x is the smaller one and 3 is the bigger one. So x is smaller than 3 or x is less than 3. In this case, we've also got the extra line underneath it, which means x is smaller than 3 or equal to 3. Now let's think about how to put this onto our graph. The boundary between x being smaller than 3 and x being bigger than 3 is going to be where x is 3. That's our border. On one side of that line, x will be smaller than 3. On the other side, x will be bigger than 3. And we know how to draw x equals 3. It's a line that goes through 3 on the x-axis. So it's this vertical line here. So that's where x equals 3. We want where x is less than or equal to 3. So on one side of the line, x will be bigger than 3. On one side of the line, x will be smaller than 3. So let's just look at some points. Let's choose this point here. This point has coordinate 8 minus 5, so the x coordinate is bigger than 3 here. But if I look on the other side of the line, this point here has coordinates minus 4, 8. So the x coordinate is minus 4, that's smaller than 3. So the left-hand side of the line is where the x coordinates are smaller than 3, and the right-hand side of the line is where the x coordinates are bigger than 3. We want the side where the x coordinates are smaller than 3, so I just shade in this side of the line. When we're shading in maths, we don't need to sit and scribble it all in. We can just use some lines like that to show which side we mean. So this inequality is x is less than or equal to 3. So we've got the stuff that's less than 3 and we've got the line where it equals 3. Let's have a look at another example. This time y is greater than minus 1. So our boundary between where y is less than minus 1 and where y is greater than minus 1 is y equals minus 1. So we're going to start by drawing the line y equals minus 1. Using my cheating method, it will go through the y-axis at minus 1. So it will go through there, so it must be this line here. So this is the line, y equals minus 1. We want where y is greater than minus 1. So let's look at some points. If I look at this point here, it has coordinates 5 minus 5. So here my y coordinate is not bigger than minus 1. So I must be on the wrong side of the line. Let's check the other side of the line. On this side I've got the point minus 4, 6. My y coordinate is 6. That is bigger than minus 1, so this is the correct side of the line. So I want to be on this side of the line. This is the side that I'm going to shade. However, in this question, y is not allowed to be equal to minus 1. So we're not allowed to be on this line. Remember, this is the line y equals minus 1. But our inequality doesn't have the equal to sign on it, so we are not allowed to be on the line. So when we have an inequality like this, instead of putting a solid line, we put a dotty line. So that line must be dotty to say that's where the boundary is, but we're not allowed on that line. So it's anything above the line. So just to repeat what I've just said, if you have an or equal to sign on your inequality, so this extra line here, then you can draw a solid line on your graph. If you don't have that line, then you draw a dotty line on your graph. So it's normally helpful to look at that before you draw the graph so that you don't accidentally draw in a solid line like I did there. Let's have a look at 2 more examples. These get easier the more you do. So we've got y is less than or equal to 6. So we're going to start by drawing the boundary y equals 6. It's an or equal to question, so it's okay for me to draw a solid line. Y equals 6 will go through the y-axis at 6, so it will go through there. So let's draw in the horizontal line. And I need to make sure I'm on the right side of the line. So I want y to be less than 6 on this side of the line. Let's try a point. If I pick this point here, that's the point minus 2, 8. My y coordinate is 8. That's not less than 6. So that's the wrong side of the line. Let's check a point on this side. So I've got the point minus 3, 2. 2 is my y coordinate, and that is less than 6. So this is the correct size of the line. This is the side of the line where the y coordinates are smaller than 6. So solid line because it was an or equal to question, and pick the side of the line. Right, last example. Here we've got x is greater than -3. So my boundary is going to be x equals -3. This time it's not an or equal to question, so I'm going to draw a dotty line. So I want where the line goes through the x-axis at -3, and I'm going to draw that in as a dotty line, like that. Now I need to choose the correct side of the line. So let's test a point. Let's check this one. That's -6, 2. My x-coordinate is -6. Is -6 bigger than -3? No, it's not. So this must be the correct side of the line. Let's just check. If I check this point here, this is the point 2, 1. My x-coordinate is 2. Is 2 bigger than -3? Yes, it is. So this is the correct side of the line. So the process is draw in your boundary line using a horizontal or vertical line. Remember to make it a dotty line if it's not an or equal to one. If it is an or equal to one, it's easy, you just draw it as a normal line. And then test a point to check if it's the right side of the line. It's always wise to check another point on the other side of the line just to make sure. Right, I'm going to give you some examples to do. These are a little bit different. I've drawn them for you, and your job is to write down the inequality that these graphs represent. So pause the video and have a go, and then press play when you're ready to check your answers. Right, let's look at the answers then. So this question here, my boundary line is here. My boundary line goes through the x-axis at 6. So my boundary line is x equals 6. But I want the inequality. So I want to know, in this shaded bit, is x bigger than 6 or is it smaller than 6? So let's have a look. Let's pick a point in this area. I've gone for this one here, which is the point 2 minus 2. My x-coordinate is 2. So my x-coordinate is smaller than 6. And the only other thing to check, it's a solid line, so that means it's allowed to be equal to 6 as well. So this area here has x-coordinates that are smaller or equal to 6. Let's have a look at the second one. My boundary line is here. It goes through the y-axis at 2, so my boundary line is y equals 2. Let's see if my y-coordinates are bigger or smaller than 2. So pick a point. I've gone for this one here. It's the point 6, 4. My y-coordinate is 4, so that is bigger than 2. So my inequality is my y-coordinates are bigger than 2 in this region here. It's a solid line, so it's an or equal to question. Right, let's have a look at these two. So my boundary line this time goes through the x-axis at 1. So my boundary line is x equals 1. If I pick a point in this region, let's pick this one here, it's the point 4 minus 2. So my x-coordinate is 4, that is bigger than 1. So my inequality needs x to be bigger than 1. It's a dotty line, so it's not an or equal to question, so we just leave our answer like this. And the very last one, my boundary line goes through the y-axis at 6, so my boundary line is y equals 6. Let's check which side of the line we've shaded, so choose a point. I'll go for this one here. It's the point 4, 3. My y-coordinate is 3. 3 is smaller than 6, so my y-coordinate is smaller than 6. So my inequality is y is smaller than 6, y is less than 6.